I think of the most profound power that exists as the power of love, actually. I think of all of the kind of false, well, I won't say false, but there are more seductive, more public facing versions of power, arms and might and all of those classic ways that we think are often masculine ways presented in our culture of feeling ourselves as strong and powerful. But in my humble experience, and as I look across history and time, I think of all the many different ways that real change has happened, um, that we feel ourselves really being alive together, that we are inspired to create life together. And I really think that love actually is the, greatest power of all. And it's partly because of that we have created so many different ways in our culture of denying that, that particular form of power that we have access to, each of us have access to, right? We all have that inherent ability to love and to make a difference through love. And so part of what formal organized power does is helps to make us forget that we have this power. And so I think mindfulness, just to work our way back to that particular modality, is one of the ways that we can reconnect with our innate power and ground ourselves in that. And for me, mindfulness is, I can use the word love just as easily as the word mindfulness. I think the two are in beautiful ways.
It's interesting you're saying that today in particular, because at Dharma Moon here, we're launching a new course. We have our teacher training course, which is really based in mindfulness, but we're doing a next tier up, which is going to start with metta, loving kindness practice.
Yes.
And we're trying to frame it out in a way. At first, it's just going to be for the graduates, so it's going to be for people who already are grounded in mindfulness and also have become teachers to some extent, how to teach loving kindness. But I feel that is the coming Buddha nature is going to be accessed directly through the portal. And it's interesting historically, as I'm sure you know, Maitreya Buddha is the next in the garland of Buddhas. Shakyamuni was the fourth in the 1,000 Buddhas, and Maitreya, and people estimate 300 350 years from now, something like that. It's a kind of level of time that is above my pay grade. And they already have a statue to him in India, a huge statue to Maitreya Buddha, and he's the bodhisattva of loving kindness. So in that iteration, do we skip over the mindfulness and just go right for the heart opening? Or do we need the platform of mindfulness in order to access loving kindness in a kind of with a certain level of precision and clarity? What would you say about that?
Well, I think of the experience of loving kindness as something that we can enter into perhaps without going through the doorway of mindfulness. In other words, I often think that there's as many different doorways into these experiences as there are moments, beings, right, expressions of life. So, and yet I know that as we're thinking about different ways of refining the teaching and training, it helps to be at least to have a rationale for offering it one way versus another. So I resist the idea that we must come through one doorway or another. But I do certainly see value in grounding in traditional teachings of mindfulness. And I think that often, as I understand it, what we in the West have translated as mindfulness could have equally well have been translated as heartfulness. In other words, there's this quality of heart that I think is always already embedded in the notion of mindfulness. So that hard boundary between what we call mindfulness and what we call metta, I, I'm open to a little bit more porousness. I fully believe that for most of us, especially in the West, grounding in a quality of love and care as how we experience awareness is pretty important because we have so much healing to do.
Mm,
We've been so alienated from ourselves, each other, from the planet. We got so many different types of wounds. We're reinforced in notions of separation and unworthiness. So to be just aware in the way that I think has the capacity to really fully help us cultivate wisdom and a way of being in relationship to all things that can help us move in the direction of bringing metta into the world in a more sustained way. I mean, I think that level and quality of awareness has to have, for most of us here in this time, a lot of softness,
mm,
a lot of kind of, heart, you know, opening. And to me, the word love is appropriate for
mm.
that quality of awareness itself. So I don't really draw too hard a line there.